I think I'm going to quit if Banyue isn't buffed by a lot. I'm actually furious right now. So what happened? Why are all the Banyue players so upset? Originally, I was planning on making a who you should pull video for the next patch. I was going to talk about Jufufu vs Dialin, then Yidari vs Banyue, and talk about the pros and cons of each of those pairings. But then I got to Banyue, and well, I realized the cons list was much larger than I originally thought it would be. I'll go over the list right now. First, he's a Fire Rupture character. There's already a Fire Rupture character in Minato that everyone got for free. Granted, Banyue is all but guaranteed to be stronger than Minato, especially if he is in Temp 6, but I imagine the player base of those two characters have a pretty big crossover. They will inevitably share teammates, so if you want to run both, one of them will be very sad. Second, he isn't even being shielded as hard as other DPSs have been in his own patch. Every single patch since 2.0, there has been a new boss that matches at least one of the DPS's elements. In 2.4, we are also getting a new boss. Take a guess what its elemental weaknesses are. Did you guess one of them would be fire to shield a new DPS? You would be incorrect. It's ice physical to shield the new characters Hugo and Ellen. Tying into this point, there's also not many fire weak bosses. It's Pompei and Wandering Hunter, and that's really it. And Wandering Hunter is closer to a boss suited for Minato than anything because of the defensive assist mechanic. Third, the leaks on his performance weren't promising. He looks like he's on the higher end of skill expression, but the leakers trying to showcase his power didn't really show results to match that. The scores left a lot to be desired, and the pre-release calculations told the same story. Even when people calculated Banyue's highest damage combos, they still came out lower than Yidari's, even with less investment on her side. This didn't sit right with Banyue mains, because with a higher skill kit, there's an expectation of a higher damage ceiling. I expected the list to end there. I expected to just say, yeah, between Yidari and Banyue, just pick if you want the Octopus Theorin or the Robo Lion guy more. But then the 2.4 livestream happened, and unfortunately, this list of cons just gets even larger. Fourth, Banyue's banner is only going to be 12 days. This makes him the shortest banner in the history of the game. Not only does this mean players will have less time to accumulate pulls to get him, his Wenjin, or however many escapes they want, it also kind of indicates that Hoyo doesn't have faith in him to perform well sales-wise. Granted, I think everyone knows it's to make way for the much more important 2.5 patch, but the fact that Banyue is the one to receive the short end of the stick is obviously disappointing for Banyue fans. Oh, did you think the list of cons ends here? Less than 24 hours after the livestream, leakers unveiled the details of the latest patch to the 2.4 content creator server. What could it be? Maybe Hoyo finally shows some love to a male character for once? Nope, quite the opposite in fact. Number 5, he just got hit with some brutal nerfs across the board. His multipliers are down, his dazed output is down, and his Wenjin took a pretty big hit too. Did you think the list would end there? Well, okay, at least my list does. Maybe there's a couple minor points I forgot about, but I think I tackled the most important ones. Yeah, that's a pretty long list. When I put it this way, I think I answered the question in the title. It seems pretty justified for Banyue mains to be upset. And do I think it's justified? I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the frustration isn't warranted, but like most internet outrages, I think this is overblown. I'll first talk about his performance, which is the part of the outrage I'm least inclined to side with, and I have the most to talk about. Leaks should never be taken at 100% face value. There are several reasons for that. First off, it's leaks, and at least in this case, I don't think I saw any indication that these were the final numbers. Things can still change between now and the live server, especially when it comes to just the numbers. Second, people don't really know how to read the context beyond looking at scores and team cost. I showed these runs as evidence for Banyue's poor performance, but let me break it down. First, Banyue is being tested against 2.4 Wandering Hunter, while Yidari's was tested against 2.3 Wandering Hunter. In 2.4, he will gain 17 million HP to get 137 million HP. 120 million will probably be like 58 to 59k score. Second, the buff is worse. Third, I don't believe at this point in Yidari leaks there are any kills. If my memory serves me correctly, it wasn't until the creator server came that people started getting 65,000 kills, and this ties into my next point. Leakers are usually not great at showcasing a character's full potential. It's not really their fault. They're basically the first people outside of Hoyo to touch the characters, so they have no reference point, no established rotations, and no community feedback to refine their gameplay. And while armchair analysts might critique the runs, it's hard to give meaningful advice when nobody else can actually test the character yet. That's why real performance usually doesn't come together until at least the content creator server at minimum gets the updated kit and people spend hours optimizing rotations. And even then, the wider player base will find new tech and sometimes better rotations when the characters actually release. So until we see that second and third wave of testing, it's way too early for Banyue mains to panic about leaked performance numbers. But at the end of the day, does it really matter? The most common advice in gacha games is waifu over meta, or at least in this case, husband over meta. I can guarantee that Banyue will still be good enough to get your Polychrome rewards and do whatever you need to do. I was talking about the upper end of Deadly Assault performance with 65,000 scores, and even though I find Deadly Assault kills interesting, I'll be the first to admit that barely 1% of the player base, if that, even cares about anything beyond 20k. He still looks really cool, has great animations, and seems like he'll be a lot of fun to play, so I'm still going to be getting him. So when it comes to Doom posting about his performance, that's where I disagree, but I do agree with the other cons. If you've been around, you know how they treat the S-rank males. Place them right before Void Hunter, make the kit seem very skippable, the banner underperforms, then release no more males for another 4 patches. Banyue isn't the first and won't be the last male character to get done dirty, and male enjoyers are rightfully upset with that. So let me know, did I miss any points, and are you still going to pull Banyue, or have you been discouraged by the news? Let me know in the comments. Banyue coincides with the winter break, so I'll still be making videos regardless of how good or bad he ends up being. So until then, see you next time.